Walt Whitman, a cosmos of Manhattan, the sun. Turbulent, fleshy, sensual, eating, drinking, and breeding. No sentimentalist, no standard above men and women or apart from them. No more modest than immodest.
It took 80 years after the Declaration of American Independence for that consciously American voice to break through. The voice of Walt Whitman, sounding, as he put it, his barbaric yawp over the roofs of the world. Whitman's publication of Leaves of Grass in 1855, at his own expense, decisively marks a moment not only of self-confidence, but of separateness. Europe in general, and England in particular, were no longer to be the sole sources of culture. Throughout the 19th century, a number of American poets sold their books in Britain in respectable quantities. Bryant, Whittier, Emerson, above all, Longfellow. But though all of them sometimes wrote consciously, often self-consciously, on American themes, all of them sound basically English, which is why the English took to them. Whitman was different, and so for rather different reasons was Edgar Allan Poe. Poe had spent part of his orphaned childhood miserably in London between 1816 and 1820. He had unfulfilled ambitions not only to be a poet, fiction writer, which he already was, but also to be a powerful and influential man of letters. He was a fierce critic of what he saw as the mediocrity of practically all American poetry. Poe looked for a new professionalism, a sense of dedication to art, which, as a Southerner, he found lacking in the cozy, do-gooding atmosphere of the New England establishment of Longfellow and his contemporaries. In his poems, as well as in his stories, Poe tended towards fantasy and a deliberate musicality. His poem, The City in the Sea, is a good example of this.
Lo, death has reared himself a throne in a strange city lying alone far down within the dim west, where the good and the bad and the worst and the best have gone to their eternal rest. There, shrines and palaces and towers, time-eaten towers that tremble not, resemble nothing that is ours. Around by lifting winds forgot, resignedly beneath the sky, the melancholy waters lie. No rays from the holy heaven come down on the long night time of that town, but light from out the lurid sea streams up the turrets silently, gleams up the pinnacles far and free, up domes, up spires, up kingly halls, up fanes, up Babylon-like walls, up shadowy, long forgotten bowers of sculptured ivy and stone flowers, up many and many a marvelous shrine whose wreathed friezes intertwine the viol, the violet, and the vine. Resignedly beneath the sky, the melancholy waters lie. So blend the turrets and shadows there that all seem pendulous in air, while from a proud tower in the town, death looks gigantically down. There open fanes and and gaping graves yawn level with the luminous waves. But not the riches there that lie in each idle diamond eye. Not the gaily jeweled dead tempt the waters from their bed. For no ripples curl, alas, along that wilderness of glass. No swellings tell that winds may be upon some far-off, happier sea. No heavings hint that winds have been on seas less hideously serene. But lo, a stir is in the air. The wave, there is a movement there, as if the towers had thrust aside in slightly sinking the dull tide, as if their tops had feebly given a void within the filmy heaven. The waves have now a redder glow. The hours are breathing, faint and low. And when, amid no earthly moans, down, down that town shall settle hence, hell, rising from 1,000 thrones, shall do it reverence.
But it was Whitman who, after the public's initial shock at his brash manner, his alleged formlessness, and what was thought to be his too explicit sexuality, became truly international. His exuberance, his insolent bravado, the sheer intoxication of his life force made him a master.
Walt Whitman, a cosmos of Manhattan the sun. Turbulent, fleshy, sensual, eating, drinking, and breeding. No sentimentalist. No standard above men and women or apart from them. No more modest than immodest. Unscrew the locks from the doors. Unscrew the doors themselves from their jambs. Whoever degrades another degrades me. And whatever is done or said returns at last to me. Through me, the afflatus surging and surging. Through me, the current and the index. I speak the password primeval. I give the sign of democracy. By God, I will accept nothing which all cannot have their counterpart of on the same terms. Through me, many long, dumb voices. Voices of the interminable generation of prisoners and slaves. Voices of the diseased and despairing, and of thieves and dwarves. Voices of cycles of preparation and accretion, and of the threads that connect the stars, and of wombs, and of the father stuff. And of the rights of them the others are down upon, of the deformed, trivial, flat, foolish, despised, fog in the air, beetles rolling balls of dung. Through me, forbidden voices. Voices of sexes and lusts, voices veiled, and I remove the veil. Voices indecent by me, clarified and transfigured. I do not press my fingers across my mouth. I keep as delicate around the bowels as around the head and heart. Copulation is no more rank to me than death is. I believe in the flesh and the appetites. Seeing, hearing, feeling are miracles, and each part and tag of me is a miracle. Divine am I inside and out, and I make holy whatever I touch or am touched from. The scent of these armpits aroma finer than prayer. This head more than churches, Bibles, and all the creeds. If I worship one thing more than another, it shall be the spread of my own body or any part of it. Translucent mold of me, it shall be you. Shaded ledges and rests, it shall be you. Firm, masculine, coultered, it shall be you. Whatever goes to the tilth of me, it shall be you. You, my rich blood, your milky stream, pale strippings of my life. Breast that presses against other breasts, it shall be you. My brain, it shall be your occult convolutions. Root of washed sweet flag, timorous pond snipe, nest of guarded duplicate eggs, it shall be you. Mixed tousled hay of head, beard, brawn, it shall be you. Trickling sap of maple, fiber of manly wheat, it shall be you. Sun so generous, it shall be you. Vapors lighting and shading my face, it shall be you. You sweaty brooks and dews, it shall be you. Winds whose soft tickling genitals rub against me, it shall be you. Broad muscular fields, branches of live oak, loving lounger in my winding paths, it shall be you. Hands I have taken, face I have kissed, mortal I have ever touched, it shall be you. I dote on myself. There is that lot of me, and all so luscious. Each moment and whatever happens thrills me with joy. I cannot tell how my ankles bend, nor whence the cause of my faintest wish, nor the cause of the friendship I emit, nor the cause of the friendship I take again. That I walk up my stoop, I pause to consider if it really be a morning glory at my window satisfies me more than the metaphysics of books. To behold the daybreak. A little light fades the immense and diaphanous shadows. The air tastes good to my palate. Hefts of the moving world that innocent gambols silently rising, freshly exuding, scooting obliquely high and low. Something I cannot see puts upward libidinous prongs, seas of bright juice suffuse heaven. The earth by the sky stayed with, the daily close of their junction, the heaved challenge from the east, that moment over my head, the mocking taunt. See then whether you shall be master.
The great trauma of mid-19th century America was, of course, the Civil War, the war between the states. It broke out in 1861, and in the following year, Julia Ward Howe published her Battle Hymn of the Republic. The tune from John Brown's Body, to which it became attached, marks a slightly earlier stage in the struggle, and particularly the anti-slavery struggle. An exalted, impassioned poem, assured that virtue and truth are totally on one side, and that God stood behind them.
Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He hath loosed the fateful lightning of his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on. I have seen him in the watchfires of 100 circling camps. They have builded him an altar in the evening dews and damps. I can read his righteous sentence by the dim and flaring lamps. His day is marching on. I have read a fiery gospel writ in burnished rows of steel. As ye deal with my contemners, so with you my grace shall deal. Let the hero born of woman crush the serpent with his heel, since God is marching on. He has sounded forth the trumpet that shall never call retreat. He is sifting out the hearts of men before his judgment seat. Oh, be swift, my soul, to answer him. Be jubilant, my feet. Our God is marching on. In the beauty of the lilies, Christ was born across the sea with a glory in his bosom that transfigures you and me. As he died to make men holy, let us die to make men free, while God is marching on.
But the year in which Julia Ward Howe published that poem was also the year of the Battle of Shiloh, one of the bloodiest battles of the war, in which Grant's forces were routed by the Confederates. Like the Battle of the Somme in 1916, Shiloh brought home for the first time to many people the horrors of modern warfare. And in 1866, the year after the Civil War ended, Herman Melville, already the author of that prose epic Moby Dick, published a book of poems called Battle Pieces, among them Shiloh, a Requiem. If Julia Ward Howe's strident public hymn is one face of that war, Melville's understated private poem is another, equally valid.
Skimming lightly, wheeling still, the swallows fly low over the field in clouded days, the forest field of Shiloh. Over the field where April rain solaced the parched ones stretched in pain. Through the pause of night that followed the Sunday fight around the church of Shiloh. The church so lone, the log-built one, that echoed to many a parting groan and natural prayer of dying foemen mingled there. Foemen at morn, but friends at eve, fame of country least their care. What like a bullet can undeceive? But now they lie low, while over them the swallows skim, and all is hushed at Shiloh.
Saul Bellow has said that it was the great irrepressible solitaries who set the tone of what was later to be seen as the 19th century American experience. Writers who, for much of their lives, worked in isolation, largely unrecognized, like Poe and Whitman and Melville. Of them all, none was more solitary than Emily Dickinson. Born into a conventional, comfortable family in Amherst, Massachusetts, she spent almost the whole of her life there, from her birth in 1830 till her death in 1886. And she gradually withdrew, so that the family house became her whole geographical world. First the house and garden, then just the house, then simply and solely her own room. Various explanations have been hazarded as to why she behaved like this, a hopeless love affair, some kind of breakdown. But whatever prompted the choice she made, the choice of solitude, it was an interior choice. Her soul had chosen it, something touched on in several of her poems. She'd been writing poems since she was a girl, but suddenly, in her early 30s, she began to write as if possessed. 366 poems in the year 1862 alone. For years, these thousands of tiny poems lay in a box in that family house in Amherst, and it wasn't until 1890, 4 years after her death, that they began to be published, and the full texts weren't published until 1955. Her rhythms are shifting and subtle, but they're almost all based on the simple verses of 18th century hymns, the hymns of the New England Church. Skeptical riddles, hard-edged and yet mysterious confrontations with death and immortality and eternity.
This is my letter to the world that never wrote to me. The simple news that nature told with tender majesty. Her message is committed to hands I cannot see. For love of her, sweet countrymen, judge tenderly of me. I heard a fly buzz when I died. The stillness in the room was like the stillness in the air between the heaves of storm. The eyes around had wrung them dry, and breaths were gathering firm for that last onset. When the king be witness in the room. I willed my keepsakes, signed away what portion of me be assignable. And then it was there interposed a fly with blue, uncertain, stumbling buzz between the light and me. And then the windows failed. And then I could not see. To see. Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. The carriage held but just ourselves and immortality. He slowly drove. He knew no haste. And I had put away my labor and my leisure too for his civility. We passed the school where children strove at recess in the ring. We passed the fields of gazing grain. We passed the setting sun. Or rather, he passed us. The dews drew quivering and chill, for only gossamer my gown, my tippet, only two. We paused before a house that seemed a swelling of the ground. The roof was scarcely visible. The cornice in the ground. Since then, 'tis centuries. And yet feels shorter than the day I first surmised. The horses' heads were toward eternity. My life closed twice before its close. It yet remains to see if immortality unveil a third event to me, so huge, so hopeless to conceive as these that twice befell. Parting is all we know of heaven, and all we need of hell.